Welcome to BeachinSurfTV. My name's Clint Harris and we're here to talk about boards, fins and everything else you use to get your froth on the surf. Today we're talking about the RMS Freckle, and today I've kind of used another contrast tool, if you will, the RMS Squelch that I brought up out of Boardland downstairs to create a little bit of a point of difference in what I'm seeing with this board. It's another addition to RMS's shorter, fatter surfboard range, something you're going to drop down 4 inches again, like that's typically been seen market with a lot of popular models, i.e. the Magic Door, the Mayhem, Subdriver, Mini Driver. We're all cutting 4 inches off. And for me, when I look at how many boards are hitting that nail on the head with that shorter surfboard market, it starts to get harder to compare what you're getting from one board to another. So I thought I'd grab a visual aid, something so we could balance it out and see what's different in this latest edition from the RMS range. So just to recap on the RMS Squelch, which we did in a previous video only recently, it was a board that was for that shorter board market. You're riding it 4 inches shorter. And it was a board I felt that didn't go over the top with the foam. A lot of the boards that I've seen come through where you are dropping 4 inches, there's a lot of foam in there. This is a 510 I got in my hands. It's 27.7 litres of foam. It still has a low enough rail, you know, the deck's not too flat, there's not too much foam in the tail. So for me it's quite a balanced, shorter surfboard. And when I look at the Freckle, the first thing I saw was a lot more foam. So this is going to be a bit interesting to look at feature by feature and see how they compare, but the overall thing that I'm seeing is volume. There is a lot more volume in the Freckle. We're looking at 29 litres in that thing compared to 27.7. I'm a bit of a believer in using the odd litres as a yardstick because it can tell you whether you can drop down a little bit in size. But let's jump into dissecting these features a bit. So the first thing that I'm going to really point out is this tail area on the board. With the Squelch, there was a little bit of tail lift when I had a look at it, but the Freckle really increased that. And what I see in the Freckle is that there is a lot more tail lift, and what that's going to give you is a lot more looseness off the top. If you think when you're coming off the top, if the tail is lifted that bit more, it's just going to allow it to free up a bit more and create a bit more speed out of your turn. So particularly good in surf that you're trying to really set up your next maneuver and get some more speed into the next turn. The advantage, of course, of having a lower tail lift is that you're going to be able to keep a bit more speed because you've got a straighter kind of platform off your board there, allowing for you to move faster across water. So there's the pro and con there of that tail. The next thing I really wanted to dive into is volume. With the Squelch, it is a lot more refined in comparison to the RMS Freckle. So if you can see from that angle there, I've got a fair bit of volume right there. I know in that lens that we're looking at through that camera, there's a lot more length, it would appear, but these are both 510s. There's just a lot more volume in this guy in the board in front on the Freckle. So continuing on the volume feature here that we're analysing, looking up at the chest area, there's similar amounts of foam kind of right under your chest, which is good because you're going to still have the same amount of paddle. The Squelch does have really good paddle power. The Freckle keeps that. But when we start to look right up towards the entry rocker of the Freckle, there is quite a vast difference between the Squelch and the Freckle. One, on the Freckle, we've got a lower entry rocker. So that's going to give you a little bit more speed, and now we're starting to see, because of that difference in the rockers, it's quite a different board, although it's coming out of that same category of boards from the RMS range. So having a look at that volume, lots more at the nose here, slightly less, slightly more refined on the Squelch, and for that, the first thing I'm looking at is that it's going to give you a lot more drive, a lot more speed on the Freckle, whereas the Squelch is probably going to handle a little bit better in a wider range of conditions because it is slightly more refined. So I'm going to just put the Squelch back for a bit here and have a look at what's going underneath on the RMS Freckle. And there's a single to slight double concave on the tail there. You've got a slight bump in the tail, creating that extra release. And when I look at the concaves and when I look at that tail, once again, I'm just seeing so much release potential on this tail. I've looked at a lot of boards in this category, and I think one of the absolute key features of the RMS Freckle is how much release you're getting off the top of the wave. not just because of the tail lift that we covered off, but because there's also a nice single to double concave there with a slight bump right behind the back fin that's just going to absolutely optimize the amount of speed you're getting out of the finish of that top turn. The very last thing that I'm going to point out about the Freckle is the rails. Now, I know that Rex does keep a pretty good hard edge on a lot of his boards. I love that about Rex's boards. When I was looking at the Buzz Plus, it's the first thing I recognise, which you want to see in a performance surfboard. When we're jumping onto something like this though, I see a lot of boards in market that have gone for more of a deeper concave through the board, and they've softened the rails a lot, which does make them a bit more forgiving, but it also doesn't make them as lively off the bottom. When you keep a harder edge on your boards, they're going to feel a lot more lively because they've got more bite that you can actually break water off. And with the Freckle, it's got one of the highest edges I've seen in a lot of boards that are representing this category of shorter, faster, fatter surfboards. So really good feature there to keep in mind. It's going to make it feel really lively even when you're in the foam kind of working off, trying to keep speed or keep the wave going. This board's going to want to respond, it's going to want to give you a bit more. So wrapping that up, the RMS Freckle is a pretty interesting addition to the market for a shorter, fatter surfboard that you are stepping down 4 inches on. You've got that extra tail lift. I think that's one of the most unique features about this board, but with the entry rocker, it's quite low as well. So you've got a lot of speed, and then you've got extra tail lift, which really says to me that you're going to have a lot of speed in and out of turns. Having the extra tail lift is going to be great off the bottom as well, because you're going to be able to break that harder and faster if you've got a throaty little sucky wave that you need to get back high again on the wave. So it's an interesting model, a great addition to the RMS range. Jump in store, check it out. We've got quite a few of these coming in, and I'd love to talk about them.